Hey y'all, Tom and Rachel here in RIoT Studios. Excited to have another program for you. What's on today's show?
Technology-based job creation is RIoT's core mission, but it's not enough to just create jobs. We have to connect talent to those jobs.
Rich Camacho, the founder of BlueRecruit, is our guest today. And Rich is going to share the incredible story of how an unexpected call from his father-in-law sparked an idea that launched a company specifically to solve this talent connection problem. We're looking forward to hearing Rich's story today.
Welcome into RIoT Studios.
All right, welcome back to RIoT Studios. We're excited to have another bright, sunny day. We've got some people in person for a change. It's great. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing well. How about you, Tom?
Doing well. Glad to be here. Tell us about what is in store for today.
Well, today we are very fortunate to have Rich Camacho in the lab. Rich leads BlueRecruit, which is a startup that just finished up the summer cohort of the RIoT Accelerator program. So welcome, Rich.
Thanks so much for having me, Rachel and Tom. Excited to be here.
Great.
You were one of the folks that squeezed into one of the very last information sessions we had before the world changed. And so it's nice to then, after all that time, circle back again and see you in person.
Yep, that was definitely an interesting one because I remember sitting there like, why is no one here? Are people actually afraid to go out from this COVID thing? And then we're like, oh, a week later, oh yeah, turns out you should not go outside.
yeah, we had about 90% attrition for that last in-person event in early March. So interesting times indeed.
That's right. Well, and you had the privilege of meeting Rich in person at that point, and I went an entire program without meeting you until today. So
I knew your kitchen very well, though.
You knew my kitchen well. That is true.
Yeah, well, we're glad today to allow all of you to meet Rich as well. So welcome to the program. And really, we're here to help get to know you a little bit better, let other folks know you, maybe kind of tell us about how you ended up on this entrepreneurial journey, what happened before the BlueRecruit time.
So, I come from talent acquisition recruiting field. I was there for about 4 years, working primarily in helping fellow veterans that were leaving the service find employment in corporate America. We were doing everything from a project manager for construction sites to even some fintech. You name it, there are companies out there that are looking for folks with that kind of a background and really blend into their culture. But ultimately, what ended up happening was companies would say, hey, Rich, thanks so much for helping us find this distribution center manager. They're working out great. But at that same plant, we also need 15 forklift operators. Can you help us out? And honestly, there really isn't a place to go to find people with those kind of skill sets. But what ultimately kind of put the icing on the cake and said, hey, you know what, you got to go out and find a better solution for this, was I was sitting on the couch. I got a phone call from my father-in-law, Joe. Joe has been an auto body painter since he was 16 years old. He actually got his GED several years ago, and he was real proud of himself because he got straight A's all through high school. And he would get really excited when he go to the movie theater because he could show his student ID for the discount. I was like, yeah, you can show your student ID and your AARP card.
Awesome.
But he calls me up and says, hey, you know what? I'm trying to hire an auto body painter for one of my shops. And what did I do wrong? I went online, I paid a bunch of money for a job post, and I got 80 resumes from house painters. He's like, Rich, a house painter can't paint a car. What did I do wrong? And I said, Joe, you didn't do anything wrong. Indeed, in that particular case, worked exactly the way it should. It's all South Florida. It's all $25 an hour. It's all painter, and it sent you every resume that its keyword search could identify. And I said, you know what? Why is it that if it's skill sets that Joe's looking for, it's particular certifications that he's looking for, why are we relying on a resume that just sees painter? And that's what was kind of like the final catalyst to let's build something that is data driven, and we can ensure that the only folks that employers are going to see are people that actually fit their talent profile. So that was kind of like the initial launch to what BlueRecruit would become.
That's awesome. And you talk to us about kind of the differentiation between professional kind of white collar traditional jobs and how people source talent in those fields versus these kind of blue collar labor jobs? Like you clearly saw a gap with people needing to find workers, but how has that traditionally been approached in the kind of white collar space?
Yeah, so I think obviously RIoT, right here in Raleigh, right here in the greater kind of North Carolina tech ecosystem that we've created, I think most people watching this can probably relate to a tech job. Let's take a developer or maybe a SaaS salesperson. Hey, there are some fundamental skill sets, the background that would make sense. Like, hey, we want to hire you for this job. Do you or don't you know JSON? And here's your JSON test. Have you or have you not sold this kind of software to these kind of organizations? And so a resume makes a lot of sense for those kind of jobs. But one thing that I don't think a lot of people know is that most blue-collar type jobs, those skilled labor type opportunities, they actually require 4 times more hard skills than the typical white-collar role. So we started looking at it and said, hey, you know what? A resume, I can talk about my people skills and my ability to carry on a phone call if I'm doing sales. That doesn't really transition well for hard skills.
Yep.
So that's why we decided, let's take a different approach. Why are we trying to basically fill the same problem in the same way when it's 2 very distinct kind of opportunities? So we decided to get rid of resumes, get rid of job posts, and really zero in and focus on those hard skills instead.
Is it more than a tool problem, though? Is it also, I've heard several times, even in this discussion around blue collar being more labor, it's skilled labor. There might be a labor piece that you append to it, but it really is skills and talents every bit as much as a white collar position, just different skills and talents.
Exactly.
And so I'm struck through the pandemic, it's opened my eyes a little bit to how much, how authentically we can say our economy is based on the traditionally lower income positions. Wall Street has done just fine. It's almost like that's not really a fair representation of what the economy really is. And so it's more important now than ever to make these connections between the needs kind of at that level of position or type of position and the labor that's out there. But we can't just walk into these facilities and drop off an application anymore and things. So how much has the timeliness of the pandemic either helped or hurted you as you've launched this company?
Yeah, so really good points there that I think, if anything, these last, it's crazy, I think 6 months at this point, have really shown is that regardless of how technologically advanced we get, regardless of how much fintech we put out there, at the end of the day, we need someone who's going to be able to lay the asphalt on the road and do a really good job of it. We need someone to build those buildings. Obviously, not many of us are going to the office, but eventually we're gonna get back there, and we still need those skilled laborers to do that. And you nailed it there, Tom. It's not that one class or one type of industry is better than the other. It's just different, and we shouldn't try to fix all problems the same way. And one thing that this pandemic really did for us was, back in February, March, when everything kind of started to unravel, and we saw the unemployment rate go from 3.5% in February. By April, it was 14.7%. Our team got together and we said, hey, we got to do something to try and help the American population. So we got really busy, and we actually put out our job seeker platform, which wasn't supposed to be released until September, so next month. We released it in May, and thankfully for these last few months, we've been able to allow literally thousands of people throughout the country get onto our platform, create a profile, put their information in there, and then we've been able to connect them with companies. So it's been a small part, but it feels good to know that, hey, we've helped X amount of families be able to put food back on the table.
That's amazing. So clearly lots of kind of highs and lows over the past 6 months. You guys were kind of thrust into this time where a lot of people needed employment, and you could plug in and help there. But talk about some of the challenges. What were the low points for the team?
I would say it was funny. Whenever I think this is my first startup company, and really diving into tech for the first time hard. But you always hear these stories of, I created this platform, we launched it, and we had 150,000 users the next day. I remember the first day we launched the job seeker platform, as we called it. I opened up the database. I'm like, why are there 3 people in here? And I'm just kind of sitting there looking. I'm like, maybe I should hit refresh. Nope, still 3 people. Okay, clearly this isn't just going to magically fill up because I created something, and who in the world knows who I am? Who knows what BlueRecruit is? Thankfully, we have more than 3 people now. But I think it's just that expectation management, like, wait, why aren't people immediately finding this? I'm like, yes, of course I want a profile. Of course I'd like to use your service. So it's just that expectation management that it takes more than launching something to truly launch something.
Yeah, and there's that saying, overnight success, but years in the making.
Yes.
So, yes, you've got some uphill battle to go. Great.
Despite that, though, I suspect you feel like things are moving pretty fast.
Yeah. Right now, they are definitely moving fast. We could basically quadruple our team. I think we'd all still be very busy throughout the day. It's funny, I'm in tech now, but I still do everything out of a notebook, and I write down every single day. I write down my list of things that I have to do, and I go through and I scratch them out and I fill them out. And if I don't complete something, then it gets moved to the next day's list. But I usually write that list in the morning, and by the end of the day, I look at it, and I've pretty much doubled what's on the list, and nothing that I thought was a priority for the day is actually the priority anymore. And it's now these other 5 things.
Things change very quickly.
Yes, yes. Like good old writing down on a piece of paper.
So you mentioned your time in the military. How did your experience coming from that military background influence how you lead BlueRecruit today?
Yeah, so before BlueRecruit, I spent 4 years placing transitioning service members into jobs, and I gotta say, this is probably one of the easiest sales you'll ever make is, hey, do you think a military veteran would be a good addition and leader to your company? Who's gonna tell you no? Like, nah, we don't want that skill set. So
discipline, hard work.
Yeah,
of course.
It's a pretty easy sales cycle. And I think one of the great benefits of it is, one thing one of my coworkers at my prior firm used to say, like, hey, you know what? Everything else is easy because you don't really have to freak out because no one's bleeding here. And yeah, it sounds kind of coarse and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's like if you have experienced really what life and death, the absolute omega as to what stress can be, then I think every other kind of problem just looks so much smaller, and it really helps you kind of focus in. Hey, what's causing this? What are some possible solutions? So I think if anything, the one thing that the military has really helped me on is at the end of the day, no one's going to die, no one's going to get hurt. It's just everyday problems that we have to look at, figure out what's causing this issue, and now let's go attack it and fix it.
Tell us about your life outside of BlueRecruit. Or, I'm sure much of your time is occupied with building the company, but what else is going on?
Well, a lot of Netflix on the couch because,
Yep.
frankly, it was funny. Just yesterday, my wife and I are watching, I think it was Hulu, and there was a commercial for this show called Love in Quarantine. And we both looked at each other like, why does anyone want to watch this? It's like, so I get to watch other couples sitting on the couch watching Netflix? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. But no, just trying to make the most of it. Normally, we are definitely the kind of family that goes out. We love visiting the local breweries and whatnot. We actually got a 3-year-old son and a 5-month-old daughter at home. And I think my 5-month-old daughter, if she could speak, would probably be like, you guys are the most boring people in the world. Like, why don't we ever go anywhere?
Her whole life has been during the pandemic. Yeah.
She was born in March, and it's like, wow, what a weird little life. Like, I remember the first time we went out with her was like 6 weeks into her life. It's like, don't worry, baby. Like, you'll get to see more things later on in life.
It's interesting, Rachel. He has a new child. We've had 3 teams in our most recent cohort that had members that had just had children, and you and I were talking the other day about how unique it is from an inclusivity point of view to have an accelerator that was forced to go full virtual, but created these silver linings where teams could participate because they're still home and with those new children. And walk us through, Rich. What was that like to try and you're launching a company at the same time that you have major family changes, at the same time there's a pandemic and so on, but how has the virtual delivery or other kind of things enabled you maybe to accelerate in ways that you might not have in the old world order where you need to be in boardrooms and shaking hands and so on?
I will say that that first time during an investor meeting, when someone comments that they can hear your child crying in the background, but it's totally okay, it's like, whew. Because like someone was like, hey, can we actually see the baby? And then the lead investor was like, oh yeah, I've been hearing it the whole time. And like in my mind, I was like, wait, was that a good thing or a bad thing? Because I don't know what else you want me to do. Like, can't really tell a 3-month-old. But I think it's definitely. I think one good thing about it is that everyone kind of just understands. Like, what else am I supposed to do? You know, I think everyone has had those situations now where they're on a meeting, Zoom, a Hangout, whatever it is you're using, and either your dog runs on your lap or someone else's dog runs in their lap. Just yesterday, we were on a sales call, and it sounded like there was a dog fight going on in the background. And it's like, what else can you do about it but laugh?
Yeah.
Because at this point, it's like, yep, that's everybody's life, and we're all in this together. And if you have a problem with it, just relax. Like, we got to just be a little bit more lenient with everyone. Like, hey, a 2-year-old's gonna start yelling and asking for milk. A dog's gonna start barking. Just go along with it.
Do you think it'll sustain? I'll ask either of you.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, there's a lot of hypothesis. People are going to keep working from home and stuff. Do you think that kind of acceptance and behavior will stick as a cultural change, or is it just a, in the moment, okay?
I would like to think so to some degree. We've been kind of forced into this collective experience, which is, everyone is sick of hearing the word unprecedented, but it is.
And new normal. And all
yeah,
these
new
things.
normal and all of this crap. But, we've been forced to blur the lines between personal and professional lives and have been able to, in our jobs, see more of the personal lives of the people that we work with. And so I think that's actually a pretty interesting outcome of this pandemic. And I would like to think that some of that will stick around.
Yeah. So your wife is in the business as well. What would she tell you need to be doing more of in the business, or vice versa? And how does kind of your personal and professional life come together? And, same kind of story we're just talking about now.
I think that's a good kind of segue into our team as a whole. I think we have a really good, I think everyone would say like, oh, our team is the best startup team. Like, we have the kind of knowledge. I think what we're really good at is that each one of us knows, and the other one knows, as well, what we're not good at. Like, there is no question of all the founders that I am not the technologist. Like, you need PowerPoint done, I'm your guy. Everything else, somebody else do it. And I think, having my wife, obviously no one in the world knows me better. She'll be the first one to tell you my weaknesses. But I think that goes for every single member of our team, is that, yes, we all bring unique strengths. I bring the HR recruiting background. Matt brings definitely the SaaS sales background. Gina brings that customer experience. Frank and Brandon are definitely our marketers. But we all know also what we're not good at, and when, not only do we have to ask each other for help, but there's just going to be times we got to go outside and get some help. Just today, we were actually having a conversation with someone from part of the cohort. We were completely lost in what we were doing, and turns out they're great at it. So, hey, help us out. Take it.
Love it.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about the cohort dynamic. Obviously, it was a different experience having a virtual program, but you all had really nice self-awareness about your strengths and weaknesses as a team. How did you interface with other startups and kind of help give each other feedback where one was lacking?
Yeah, I would have never, had we been having this conversation a year ago, I would have never said that someone that I've never met before, that I've only seen like their living room or their bedroom, which would be very bizarre, but someone that you've never met in person, that you could call them a friend. But that is exactly what has happened, I think, not just in this cohort, but kind of in greater. Rachel, we never even met, and you were literally giving me advice for how to run our business and, frankly, therefore our finances. Like, what world does that make sense in, that you would just listen to basically a stranger as to like, hey, I think you should do this with your money? Like, who are you?
Yeah. So you did listen to me. Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes. Yeah, but that's exactly what happened to the cohort. We've had some great phone calls outside of the scheduled meetings, and just giving each other advice, giving each other some pointers, like maybe some recommendations, like, hey, I think y'all are doing something that's definitely not in the best favor of the business. And I do think that that's a kind of a unique situation where everyone just has to almost open up a little bit more and be a little bit more trusting, because I think it's just in our human nature that until you shake hands and look someone in the face, you're not going to have that. But those kind of barriers are breaking down a little bit. I will say I was a little iffy about the virtual thing, but it worked out.
It worked out okay. Yeah, we're glad to see that too. Yeah, so I was gonna ask what's next. What's next for BlueRecruit? Maybe tell us some success stories you've had currently with some clients that you're working with, and then what does the next 6 months look like for you?
Yeah, so 3 weeks from now, we are actually planning on doing our complete product launch. So secretly inside, I'm actually terrified right now, because it's like, talk about those lists earlier. Like right now, the list is like 3 pages long. Like, oh wait, before we launch that, we need to have this email template created so it can go out properly. So all those little, kind of tiny things that you never really think about are all getting knocked out right now. But we're really excited. I shouldn't say excited, because obviously COVID is what caused this. But by launching the job seeker side so much earlier than we had anticipated, we were able to, not just have people join our job seeker platform, but then we were also saying, hey, you know what? We have all this information. Let's get these people some jobs. So we brought in a number of companies, both enterprise and small business. And I will say that was probably the most beneficial thing, and I think it's going to pay dividends for years for us, because these last few months have told us, hey, you know what? This thing that you thought was going to be a great product addition, turns out nobody wants it. Or this thing that we never even thought of, hey, we've got to build that for our clients. And I think one problem that kind of happens a lot with startups, especially in tech, is there's so many smart people out there that are just building amazing things, but they never actually take the time to say, like, hey, this is really cool, but is anyone going to pay for this? And these last 6 months have really shown us this is what people will pay for, this is what people won't pay for, and these are kind of like the nice to have things. Mm-hmm. And it really, really kind of focused us in and to create a product that, once again, I hope that in 3 weeks we're going to have more than 3 people signing up for.
That's right. Awesome. Well, we've been grateful to be part of your entrepreneurial journey so far, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens with BlueRecruit in the future.
Thanks, Rach.